the NewsChannel 5 network, this is MorningLine with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Beres here on a Monday. Do indeed hope you had a very good weekend, and we're starting off this week with a great show. We're going to invite you to join in the conversation. We'll get the phone number up there and your chance to call in. We're not only airing this morning on the Plus here, okay, we're also going to be streaming live at newschannel5.com on Facebook. So you can go there and message us as well as we talk about a special report that's airing here on our News Channel 5 network, Broken. And that is the work of our News Channel 5 I-Team Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams with us this morning. Good to have you. Thank you. It's always very appreciative of our entire crew here when you take time in the early morning to join us, but I know it's for a very important story.
Yeah, this has really become a passion project for me and for the whole team. Every single member of our investigative unit is working on this project for November because it's such an important project.
Well, and when you say working on it, you've been working on this for several months, have you not?
About 6 months ago is when I first started working on this, and it's been just a complete immersive learning experience because it really began with it seemed like almost every day we had some juvenile crime that was in the news, carjackings, murders, shootings. And, I really just wanted to know what in the heck is going on? Why does this keep happening? And the more that I got into this, the more the word broken came to mind, because this system is completely broken. We are dealing with children who, are in their own ways, they're broken. They have lots and lots of personal issues that are driving juvenile crime. And so, what we're trying to do is to show how the system is broken and how the system is failing these children. I mean, it's one thing to look at them and see, young criminals. What we're going to try to do during this experience is to look at them and see them as children who are being failed by the system and try to get at what's wrong with the system, because you can't fix it unless you know what's broken.
Yep. And listen, Phil, you hit it on the head. I come in early and do these live breaking news hits. Every other morning there's a shooting, it seems like, in Metro, and quite often it involves teens. Right. Be it a carjacking, a home invasion, a 16-year-old dumped at the hospital with a gunshot wound. And we've all kind of done stories along the lines of, okay, well, this has happened, the teens, why, and looked at it. What you're doing now is what I think we've needed to do for a long time, and I like what you call it, an experience. Yeah. This is not a one-time story. And before we get into showing some of the clips and get into the details and take phone calls, let's just explain the different platforms this is going to be on and the way you've put this together. It's not just one story.
No. We have completely blown up the model for the way that we do television. Yeah. Because this is such a big topic. It's such an important topic that we're essentially doing a series of mini documentaries, and then we'll have versions for broadcast, but then we'll also have these extended versions that people can look at on Roku, on our News Channel 5 app on Roku, on Amazon Fire TV, on Apple TV. We'll have extended versions posted on our website, newschannel5.com. And so you'll see, a story on our broadcasts, but then you can also go to those other platforms to see extended versions, almost mini documentaries.
Which I think this was important to you to do, from the sense that in a newscast, as you and I both know, you have certain time constraints to fill a whole newscast. So maybe you're turning, and I-Team gets more time sometimes. You can do 5-6 minute pieces, but this is going to allow you, for instance, right now, isn't there a half-hour piece that's posted right now? Yeah,
we spent, as part of this, we spent several times over a course of a 6-week period. We spent several nights riding with the Metro Police Juvenile Crime Task Force, and as we were riding along, I kept thinking that, my goodness, I wish the public could see what we're seeing. And finally, at some point, I just said, okay, we have got to do just a special, a 30-minute documentary in this case, about what it's like on the front lines with those officers who are trying to deal with juvenile crime in our city. And I want to be very clear about something. This is not just a Nashville problem, because the kids who are coming, or there are kids who are coming from Nashville and going to other communities.
Sure.
They're going to Hendersonville, they're going to Brentwood, they're going to Columbia, they're going to Clarksville. And so Middle Tennessee's, or Nashville's juvenile crime problem has become Middle Tennessee's juvenile crime problem. And so, but to go back to your question, we have this 30-minute special about life on the front lines. It's not going to air on broadcast. You can go right now to those platforms.
Most all of those OTT devices, right?
Right.
And just do the News Channel 5 app.
Right, and you can see. And we're going to show some clips from that
in fact,
30-minute documentary.
We should lead into it. And another thing I like about this, Phil, I think you and I both know too, broadcast TV still has its place and roles. More and more people are getting news from exactly where you're going with this. Right. And I suspect after Broken moves, and you'll do more and News will do more, we're going to be showing more and more stuff on these OTTs. Yeah. That's just the way it is. That's the future. And that's where a lot of people get their news now.
And it gives us the freedom to tell the story the way it needs to be told.
Before we take our first break, do you want to show one of our first clips? We have 3 we're going to show, but since you just led up to it, let's show it.
Yeah, there's one that we're going to start with a clip that shows really what life is like for these officers. You know, officers are in dangerous situations. But we found ourselves in the middle of a pretty dangerous situation with the members of the Juvenile Crime Task Force. Photojournalist Brian Staples and I were riding with them. This actually was on the first night that we rode with them.
And you never know what you're going to get. But boy, did you get something that night. Let's have a look at that piece if we can, the first one that we'll show you throughout the show today.
That's it right there.
Okay, if I'm on my phone.
Hang on just a second. Is that your vehicle? Would you mind if I just check your ID and registration just to make sure they matched? And then absolutely.
You got any weapons on you?
Mr. Taz, you got anything in the car we need to put out?
Y'all are shooting down here.
Where?
Rosie Davis.
Give me Charles in my face.
Guys, stay over here.
If you're dealing with somebody, stay with them. Pete Herman's down here.
I'm notifying them.
Male black, white tank top, blue shorts, black shorts. Drive back to the playboard on Cannon.
Back towards the playboard on Cannon.
Male left on playboard.
Left on playboard.
20, I got it.
What's your 2020?
Playboard and Cannon.
That's okay.
Shot 5 more coming in front of you.
All right, get Central down here, Central Flex, and Herman is down here until we get this figured out.
Okay, I've got 510 Charles,
I see him.
Claiborne, and Cannon looking for you guys. Where are you in that area?
Walk over to our cars on Charles E. Davis. Just have Hermitage and Central flood this area so we can deal with this without having gunshots going around us.
So we had one individual that we were watching on cameras that we initially got directed to over here. Well, as we were walking up on him, he threw a gun. So we had him detained. While that was going on, we heard shots being fired over here near Claiborne and near Lafayette. So as we rushed over there, we have one individual that flees from us. We get him in custody. He's claiming that he's a narcotics dealer and had a deal go bad. And they were shooting at him. We're getting him in custody and walking him back. Shots, 2 different groups of shots fired being fired over here at University Court. So all at one time, we've got World War III going on.
Yeah, because you're down in this car.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden.
Yeah. 6, 7, 8 police officers here, and right next to us, they're shooting each other.
Phil, this was your first night out, and it's not as though this was like then out of the blue. I mean, I know it doesn't necessarily happen every night, but that's more common than, say, something out of the ordinary, is it not?
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of officers, and they say, that this is something we experience on a regular basis. And what really struck me is you had all of those officers running straight toward the gunfire.
And you're hearing gunshots. That's what's amazing. You think about the service of these officers, and they go to work every day, and they don't know if they're going to get shot at or if they're going to be in the middle of something like that. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And the danger that they deal with, and you feel sorry and every other night. Listen, we'll take a break, and okay, we have other pieces. We're going to take some comments on Facebook if you want to join us, as well as you can give us a call, 737-7587, as we're talking with News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams about his special report, Broken. We'll be back with more right after this. All right, welcome back to MorningLine, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're coming to you on the Plus, of course. You can call us here. We're also streaming live at NewsChannel5.com on Facebook. News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams with us, talking about his special report, which is airing the I-Team special report the entire month of November.
Exactly. Our first report is tonight on News Channel 5 at 10. We're really going to take a look at the revolving door that puts these violent teen offenders out on the street again and again and again, and to see why that is.
Well, I think that's the crucial question.
Yeah,
Phil.
I mean, and we focus in particular on 3 murders.
Okay.
And I was able, as part of this project, to get unprecedented access to some data for juvenile crimes. It did not have any names in it.
Okay, let's just explain. It's hard to get data there because it's all juvies, and because of that, it's not publicly available.
Right. But there are certain crimes that are public, murders, for example. And so by going in and looking for murders that occurred on a certain date, I was able to put names with some of these profiles and sort of essentially reverse engineer the juvenile histories. And, we're going to look tonight at 3 murders and look at the histories of the individuals who are implicated in those murders. And you'll see there is this revolving door. This was not the murders were not the first time that they interacted with the system.
Let's take a call from Joe. Joe, good morning. Hi, Joe. Hello, Joe.
Good morning, Nick.
Good morning.
Just listen to Phil's program of what he's doing, investigating. I agree with the juvenile system is broken. Where I disagree with him is calling these people children. Now, all it takes to kill somebody with a gun is to be big enough to pull the trigger, and they do it on a regular basis. Nobody, it's a bigger problem than people realize. I mean, like you said briefly a while ago, all of these crimes doesn't always make the news. It doesn't make the paper, but these kids, they're not going to school. Nobody's making them go to school. I personally talked to one of the SRO officers at one of the bigger schools in Nashville and asked him a question about one, and he kind of laughed and he says, so there's nothing I can do about it. So whenever, like the guy says, whenever a 12-year-old can get caught with a stolen car and be back home before he gets the paperwork done, we've got a real problem with the juvenile system.
In one of the teases, where we saw that's been running on the newscast, you interviewed a friend of ours, Jim Todd, fine attorney, former juvenile justice DA, talking about how they'll get arrested for car theft and be out before the night's through.
And that's one of the things we're going to be looking at as this investigation proceeds throughout the month of November. I mean, there are laws. As he points out, you cannot detain by law children for nonviolent offenses. The police arrest them, take them downtown to juvie, and the juvenile court officials pick up the phone and call mom or dad and say, come get your child.
Yeah, if it's nonviolent.
If it's nonviolent. But I want to respond to his point there. These are children. A 12-year-old who steals a car is still a child. And I think we have to understand, try to understand, no one is born bad. And so what are the influences that lead a 12-year-old to steal a car? A 12-year-old is still a child, and as long as we continue to say they're just bad kids and not try to understand how they got there, we won't fix this problem, because police cannot fix this problem by themselves.
You're exactly right. Now, I know you've talked to the judge, Judge Calloway, juvenile court judge here. And the question is, and a lot of people here on Facebook talking about accountability. And I hear exactly what you're saying. Last thing I want to do is lock up a 12-year-old for the rest of their lives and have to pay for them if they commit an adult-type crime. But where's the line? I mean, as you said, you've got some numbers we're going to see in some of your stories that show that there were plenty of priors for some of these kids who ultimately ended up committing murder. And many of the public out there are going to say, look, how many red flags do you need? And I don't care how many non-violent. You steal a car 5 or 6 times. I'm sorry, it's about time the hammer come down on you before you kill someone. That's where there's a frustration. There's anger out there, and a lot of people just saying, lock those little punks up.
Yeah, and there are no easy answers. But I think there is a general consensus among those who deal with juveniles on a day in and day out basis that you can put them away and lock them up with other kids who have problems. And guess what?
It just gets worse.
They're going to learn bad behaviors.
Yeah, you're right.
And so there's got to be other kinds of interventions. You know, locking them up, you know, isn't going to solve everything. So, you know, some children need to be locked up. And what you're going to hear in our story tonight at 10, sometimes the Judge Calloway, thinks children ought to be locked up, and then the Department of Children's Services puts them back out on the streets.
Okay, right. So to just say, oh, it's the judge's fault or it's the police officer's fault or something, it's not. It's multifaceted.
Yeah.
And DCS, I know, is going to be a big part of your story
Absolutely.
as well. All right. Let's take another call. We've got Elaine. Elaine, good morning. Hi, Elaine.
Hey.
Hey.
I love your show.
Oh, thank you.
This is about, well, my son had emailed Mr. Williams about my granddaughter, Sienna Owens. Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead. Just keep talking to us on the phone. There's a little delay there. We can hear you.
Okay. Anyway, my son had emailed Mr. Williams about my granddaughter, Sienna Owens. This kid was 12 years old. Sienna was 11. Children's Services, they're a joke. The judge here in Franklin County is a joke. He did not serve any more than 30 days. I had to listen to Child Services say what a fine young man he was, and he needed to be home. They did not have any grief, any remorse for my granddaughter. And his mother, the kind of person we're dealing with, she walked her son into North Junior High on a Monday after my Sienna was murdered on Friday. He didn't even get a good slap on the wrist. So something has got to be done.
Is it the laws, Phil? The way they are, do they want to do more and their hands are tied under state law?
It is, the whole system is broken.
Okay.
And,
but where do you start then? I mean, that's what I'm hoping we're going to get out of this, and I hope state lawmakers pay attention to your piece. We need solutions.
Yeah, there are certainly problems with the laws, but there are also some serious problems with the way the Department of Children's Services handles these children. You know, there are, for example, only 144 high security beds that DCS has to lock up children who are violent for the entire state. Because you remember, like 5 years ago, there were a number of riots at
do you remember
the youth
that?
development
was
centers.
It Woodland Hills, was it?
Hills.
Yeah, I remember the video of that.
And so DCS has gotten away from these sort of high security facilities.
So where do they put the violent ones when those beds are full?
They go to less secure facilities run by contractors.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Let's take another phone call here before we have another clip we're going to want to show as well. I don't know. Mary Elena, let me know if we'll have time to take that next or if we need to take another break. But let's go to Marcus. Good morning, Marcus. Hi, Marcus.
Good morning.
Morning.
See, once again, you guys are trying to put juveniles in a certain category, and especially based on race. Phil, when are you going to do a story on why affluent people in Governor's Club out in Brentwood keep killing each other? One being the one that just happened not too long ago with the guy who was the chairman of an aviation company. Back in 2013, it was a white dentist who was killed by a white husband. I mean, why are people in Governor's Club in the Brentwood area, where it's very affluent and people are making well over $100,000 a year. Why are they feeling the need to kill each other when they're doing so well? Why don't you do a story on that sometime and stop trying to blame black teenagers for all the chaos?
Okay, I've seen your stories. You're not blaming black teenagers or any other teenager for this, but that's his perception. You want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, number one, people in Governor's Club are not killing each other and shooting and carjackings every single day. Let's just be honest about that. Number two, the children who are involved in these, violent acts, we believe, based on our reporting, in some ways they are victims too, because the system is not doing anything to provide the interventions that they desperately need. And it's not about race.
Well, I was going to say, it's not only African American children or Caucasian children or Hispanic children. It's a mixed bag. I mean, there's not a race card applied to juvenile crime. It runs the gauntlet here.
Yeah, but we are going to take a serious look tomorrow night at 10. At these issues involving race and racism, and how those factors may be driving our juvenile crime problem. Because if you go to juvenile detention right now, overwhelmingly the majority of the kids who are being detained there because they're considered too dangerous to release are African American children. And so we wanted to know why that is. And we've talked to some very prominent African Americans about this. You'll hear from one gentleman who says he believes it's time to declare a public health emergency in the city, because there are communities in our city that are in crisis. And you cannot have a conversation about juvenile crime unless you're willing to have very difficult conversations about race and even racism. And so we're gonna dive into that. It's not an easy topic, but it's an important topic. And hopefully people will not ascribe motives to me or to the team until they've seen the reporting. But there are serious problems in certain communities in the city, and we will not be able to fix them until we're willing to talk honestly about them.
All right, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, more calls and more of your comments on Facebook, as well as we've got more clips to show you from Phil's pieces. And again, another one airing tonight at 10 o'clock. And you can find longer form on a lot of the OTT devices. We'll tell you more about that and be back with more with Phil right after this. Back on Morning Line, thanks for joining us. Nick Beres, along with NewsChannel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams, talking about his special report, Broken. And we've got another clip to talk about. Phil, set us up.
Yeah, well, one of the things we're talking about is the fact that sometimes the laws just make no sense. For example, if you pick up if police pick up a juvenile for stealing a candy bar, they have to take that juvenile downtown, and that juvenile will be released immediately as soon as the parents can get
for a candy bar.
For a candy bar.
Okay, that's cool.
If the first time a juvenile steals a car, the
Don't tell me.
thing happens.
Same thing. Okay, well, that's a little different.
So this is what happens. So Metro Police, their juvenile crime task force, focuses mainly on stolen cars, kids in stolen cars, and kids with guns. Stolen cars because they have found that once a kid steals a car, that's usually the beginning of a crime spree. They steal a car to go across the city and do other crimes. And so if they can interdict the children, the teens in these stolen cars, then they can potentially prevent other crimes. And what they try to do is they try to use their helicopter to pursue these and track these kids in stolen cars, because they don't want to get into a pursuit with a kid who doesn't really know how to drive that well and may feel like he has nothing to lose. And so our team was with the Juvenile Crime Task Force when they got onto a kid in a stolen car.
Let's have a look.
Everyone, if he stays like this, it's going to go 65 north, not 24, so he'll be heading up to Madison, moving all the way over to the right lane. Everyone exiting Old Hickory Boulevard. Right, top of the ramp, and he's in the number 2 lane to go right. So he's going to be going into Madison, towards Gallatin. Still number 1 lane, still behind the large green and white moving truck. We'll be getting up in traffic at Gallatin Pike here in just a second. Everyone's up at the red light 1 street before Gallatin. All right, still stuck behind that white green truck. Everyone go to the air, they're going to take it. Everyone, drivers out bailing, run to the back of the car going over the railroad tracks.
20, what's 20?
In front of elementary school, onto the elementary school properties, falling down to us behind us.
Canine coming up. They got him.
Suspect in custody?
Right on the east side, or the west side of the bridge, over in the grass of the elementary school.
You all right? Good job.
Good. You got your keys on you?
Where's the car at?
Watch out. Oh, no. Breathe, huh? Relax.
So this is what we've been talking about the entire time, things we're seeing here every single week. 17-year-old in a stolen car. Again, a stolen car that was easily accessed because the owner or the driver operator left the keys accessible to him. A very nice vehicle, an Audi, very expensive vehicle. Now he's out cruising the streets of Nashville.
Here, let me open that up. See if
I didn't buy one.
oh, here you go. That's a good one right there.
Oh, it is a ski mask. Look at that.
Again, this interesting. Wow, watching that as they take him down. This was a car that was taken because it was a crime of opportunity, I suppose, as he said.
Right.
As we keep doing stories on people that leave their cars unlocked and keys in the ignition or whatever. Come on, get with it.
Yeah, and a lot of it are the fobs.
Yes,
where people
that's
can
right.
just put them in the console. So, I mean, if people learn anything, stop making it easy for kids to steal cars.
Yeah, now he had a mask and everything too. Now that's a little different the way he took that vehicle. A lot of these teens are involved in carjackings. Now that's violence.
Right.
Correct? That's a different category?
Correct.
Okay.
That's a actual threat to a person.
Right.
So they can detain on a first offense with a carjacking.
But that 17-year-old, as he was brought in, what do we assume happened to him that evening after he was processed?
He had been arrested for auto theft a month before.
Okay.
Arrested again. He was taken to juvenile detention and he was released 3 hours later.
3 hours later. And you could tell, too. I mean, he was not docile. I mean, he took a kick at the photog in front, and they had to put him... I mean, it's just a different mindset. It's like it doesn't faze him.
Yeah. And again, we have to look at why is that? And that's what we're going to try to do with this series, is to try to dig deeper and see what is happening in our city. Why is this juvenile crime occurring, and what can we do to fix it?
Several of the comments on Facebook responding to that very question on who should be held responsible ask about the parents. And one, Phil, can parents be held accountable for the actions of their juvenile kids? And two, can there be anything more? I think we all agree more parent involvement is always good, and some of these kids maybe don't even have parents that care. But can the parents be held accountable?
Well, and one of the interesting things we found, and we're going to get into later as all of this progresses throughout the month of November, there are some parents who have been begging, I cannot control my child, help me. And they are told, and in one case a mother said, I begged them to keep my child locked up. And because the law says the children cannot be detained, the parents are then told, you either come and get your child or we're going to report you for neglecting your child.
So then they're given no choice. Right. They have to go pick up the child, and they've already acknowledged they can't deal with them. They're afraid of their own children sometimes.
Yeah. And so this problem is so big that I think you're going to hear in the piece tomorrow night at 10 that it really does require a community-wide response, and it's not just at the local level; it's at the state level.
So you call from Jack. Jack, good morning. Hi, Jack.
Yeah, I think we need to have mandatory education for stupid adults.
What do you mean?
I don't know how many times I've heard about people leaving their keys in their cars and the car gets stolen. I mean, really, how stupid do you have to be in this day and age with the number of car thefts that are going on to leave your keys in your car? So I would suggest, after the car is recovered, the adults get ticketed and they're forced into a mandatory education program to stop leaving their keys in their cars.
It's not only that, Phil. People are leaving guns in their cars.
Exactly. And we're going to get into that later this week as well. The Tennessee State Legislature was given a chance to pass a law this past session that would have put a fine in place for people who leave a gun unsecured. And they were afraid of infringing upon the rights of gun owners.
Well, it's kind of interesting, though. I mean, it is your car, and it's still a crime being committed. And so someone steals something from you because you're careless, leave the car unlocked. And then you get fined. Not only, your gun's gone, someone stole your car, but now we're giving you a fine on top of it. I know it's stupid that they do this, but it's kind of like further punishing them. I mean, they have been victimized because of their own foolishness. But
yeah, and I think the concern is, does a responsible gun owner have a responsibility to make sure that a weapon is secured?
No, I think a strong argument can be made that way. Maybe. Now, on the other hand, though, again, do you think they could pass a law that holds them accountable too? Some people would say some of these parents have children that are weapons. Can they be held responsible for the conduct of their children?
And the other thing we're going to get into is that possession of a handgun by a juvenile is a misdemeanor. And so again, it's a very low-level offense, and so that limits the options with what DCS can do with them, because it's just a misdemeanor.
Okay, so there's another layer: the laws, and then how DCS handles it. Let's go to Bill next. I believe we have Bill. Good morning, Bill.
How you doing this morning, Nick?
Good, sir. Go ahead.
And thank you for the gentleman that you have on there, your show. I know that was a lot of good work he's done so far.
I appreciate it.
And anyway, this is just ideas. Maybe pumping a little taxpayer money into the local churches. That's in maybe a little bit more of these high crime areas where the juveniles are committing the crimes. Maybe the churches can kind of reach out. And also, especially in the spring and summertime or whatever, having some even taxpayer monies of a program where some of these young kids can find a part-time job during the summertime and increase that. It's again, this just ideas. Maybe it would help showing that these kids, hey, we can give you something else to do besides just wander around.
Give them some other options. That's got to be part of the equation.
There really does need to be a community-wide conversation. I was talking to my pastor this weekend, and he says something about that he had been thinking that our church needed to reach out to the 37208 community, which is the community. It's North Nashville, which has the highest incarceration rate of any zip code in the country. And it really is going to require a community-wide conversation, and it is going to require someone taking a leadership role and saying, okay, this is a monumental task. How can we begin taking steps to tackle this problem?
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, our final segment with Phil Williams. We have another clip to show as well, correct?
Yes.
And we'll tell you more about how you can follow Broken throughout the month of November right after this. Stay with us. All right, back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us here with News Channel 5 Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams. His special report, Broken, airing all the month of November. We'll tell you more about how you can catch all of those segments as they go, but we've got another clip to show.
Yeah, we were just talking before the break about the fact that people leave their keys in their cars, cars get stolen. In some cases, that can lead to some really difficult or tragic circumstances. We happened to be out with the Juvenile Crime Task Force when a young man in a stolen car just kind of blew by a police officer, and it was a pretty ugly scene.
All right, let's have a look.
Staying on Trinity here. It's
going pretty good. I don't think it knows I'm back here.
They have wrecked in front of the liquor store.
Yeah, they wrecked out over here in front of 515's truck. The car's got to roll over.
Is it clear, Brandon?
They're gone. I don't know where they're at. The car's abandoned here.
Get everyone. Complex, 355-15's drug.
So, officer was trying to stop a car, and seemed like it didn't want to stop. Seemed like he never got even close to it, but as he proceeded towards the direction that the car was at, he rolled up on a crash, so it looked like it had crashed out, so it was probably trying to evade him.
All right, y'all get up here. There's some mess up here. Some of y'all go in the complex. Some of y'all close the street down. Black hoodie, what the driver was wearing. Younger male, black hoodie.
Victim's name, male black, about 6'1", black hoodie. That's all he has.
So this is victim vehicle?
Yeah, there's a bad guy vehicle over there.
So we were not pursuing, correct? We weren't even in sight, correct?
I was, no.
21, we got a wall in the car.
I mean, yeah, I was in sight. He went right past
101.
I was turning left.
265.
You, I'm talking about tenant.
Nelson Road.
Okay.
12-3.
So he went by you as you was going the opposite direction?
Yeah, he almost T-boned me.
Okay. So essentially we had an officer that was sitting up there with us waiting, looking. He sees this car drive by at like 90 miles an hour. He's like, okay, there's something definitely up with that. So he pulls out to try to get caught up with it. Doesn't get anywhere near it. We have a sergeant that's up here at this intersection. It goes by him as he goes by the opposite direction. This gentleman's pulling out to turn left to go back towards the interstate here. Doesn't see him. He's driving so fast. But that's a suspect vehicle. He ends up over here. Everybody reported that the suspect took off running that direction. But we have at least one detained right now up here in the apartment complex.
All right, so there we have a case of someone pulling out innocently enough, and this vehicle stolen?
Stolen.
Slams into him. And by the way, how was the victim?
I think he had
survived.
He survived. He has some injuries, but they were not serious.
And we should say a lot of times, and there's policies with police departments about chasing in metropolitan areas. They try not to because they don't want. This guy was already cooking when he passed this officer, and so this was not a chase that led to the crash. This guy was on his way anyway, going 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, he had just stolen the car.
Yeah.
And you know, he was getting away from the scene, getting away from the area. And that was another case where the driver left the keys in the car while he ran into a market.
Wow. Okay, was the car even running? Maybe sometimes you do that and you leave it running. But okay, crime of opportunity. Do you think the juveniles are to the point now where they know how to look for that and they'll just watch and wait until they see someone leave and know that the keys are in the car?
Yeah, we're hearing stories about that from all over the mid-state area. I think Mount Juliet and Dixon and Clarksville, and so this is becoming so common. I mean, if this series does nothing else other than encouraging people to lock their cars when they get out at the markets, we will have accomplished something.
Gotcha. Because they're not hot wiring cars, are they?
No.
I don't even know if you can do that in today's cars, but they're finding keys in the cars.
I think the last report we saw from the Metro Police Department was like 75% of the stolen cars had the keys left in them.
All preventable. You're right. That and the guns that are taken as well, as we talked about. Let's go to Martin. Martin, good morning. Hi, Martin.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good, sir. What's on your mind?
Well, I just got to tell you, you're probably not going to like what I'm going to say, but you call them kids and juveniles. They're not. They're what they are. But it's the school districts. It's you guys, and I say you guys have had generations of children, kids, if you will, not respecting the law, not respecting their parents, not respecting teachers. And in fact, like your own guest said, they're out in 3 hours. There's no respect for the law, so there's no fear of the law or anything. Fear and respect go hand in hand. And if you don't fear anything, you can't respect anything. And that's exactly what in generations of indoctrination through the public school systems, through the higher universities, you see, you got the school districts. The school districts condone school-wide walkouts. School-wide walkouts. So let's just defy authority and go ahead and walk out, and we condone it. And it's a great thing that you're protesting. Kids should be in school. It's not education anymore. It's indoctrination of the left. And
okay. Well, I don't know. With schools and authority, and I don't know, do the schools have a role to play in all this?
Well, and first of all, I'll just say I'm a public school graduate, so
yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. So I really am not going to blame public schools for quote indoctrination. What I will say is that when you look at some of the communities where the juvenile offenders are coming from, those, number one, the kids in those communities, and we're going to get into this much more tomorrow night at 10, but the kids in those communities have had all sorts of traumatic experiences. They've seen family members shot and killed. They've seen, friends shot and killed. Those communities have some of the worst schools in the state. Those schools are not necessarily equipped to deal with kids who have lots of trauma experiences, and what the people in education call adverse childhood experiences. And so there is a role for the schools to play, and that is part of the conversation that we're going to have. But blaming the schools, I don't think we can blame them, but I can say that a lot of these children are coming from some of the worst schools in the state that are just not equipped to deal with the issues that they bring to school.
What schools are really equipped to do with that period? I mean, schools, at least when we were in our public schools, were there to teach us. Now schools are being asked to do so much more than just teach. To deal with some child that's been traumatized because they've witnessed a neighbor shot and killed in the front yard. Wow. I mean, how does a school deal with that?
But think about it, a child is not going to be able to learn unless they feel safe.
Oh, of course, I understand. You think children don't feel safe in schools sometimes?
I think they just don't feel safe, period. You'll hear in tomorrow night's piece at 10, you'll hear juvenile court officials say that a lot of these juvenile offenders don't think they're going to live to be past the age of 20. So they have no hope. They see no future. So why not live this lifestyle?
On some of these stories we're going to see, and I want to talk about what is laying ahead for us. Have you been to the juvenile court some and seen these kids? I know cameras aren't allowed in, but see them when they go before a referee or the judge. I mean, I've been over there a few times, so I know you have. Sometimes I'm looking at them, and it's just dead. Yeah. It's like they have no concept, one, maybe of what they're facing, or two, they don't care. And I'm like, wow, it's just like, it's not fear, it's just, I don't care. Wow, how do you fall that far? I mean, I would have been terrified at the time. Now, I came from a very different place than these kids. But I mean, it's just heartbreaking when you see someone who's maybe 16 years old and already they've given up and they're going to do whatever the heck they want and nothing scares them.
Yeah, I spent some time over in juvenile detention. Okay. I went over there to take some photos. Yeah. And there was this one kid who came up and started talking to me, a boy. He was curious about what I was doing, and we had a very nice conversation. And he is in there accused of shooting someone during an attempted carjacking. And I asked him, I said, what would have made a difference in your life? And his answer was having a father figure who loved me.
Wow, he was honest with you and laid that out. Holy cow. Yeah, and that makes sense. Cool. Listen, real quick then, let's explain then. These pieces are going to be running at 10 o'clock on NewsChannel 5, and it's going to be throughout the month of November, correct?
Correct.
And then also, if people want to see it, OTT devices for the longer form, because I think a lot of people, the videos that we've shown tonight, that's just a small taste of what people are going to see. And we can talk about it, but seeing it for yourself, like you said, you want to bring them out there to see it, is really compelling.
And that special is not going to be on broadcast, so you can go to the only place you can get it. You can go to Roku or Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or go to our website, newschannel5.com, and see this 30-minute On the Frontline special. And then, beginning tonight at 10, we're going to start digging deep, looking at the revolving door. Tomorrow night at 10, we're going to look at these communities in our city that are in crisis. Thursday night at 10, we're going to look at kids and guns. And then it's going to continue all month long. We're going to show you kids being held in conditions that may actually make them worse, make them more violent. And so, and then by the end of the month, we're going to show you some programs that are showing promise of working. How can this problem be fixed? And so it's an important issue for our community, and we are just going to take a deep dive all month long. And we want your feedback. We want the public's feedback. We want to start a conversation about how this broken system can be fixed.
Well, and part of this, and like with all of your investigations, I mean, this is going to be making its way through, and you've got a lot of stories already completed. But things are going to come up this month. So there will probably be stories you turn as a result of what people see, whether it's local community leaders, parents, or lawmakers, right? So that can develop, even though I'm sure you've reached out to them already.
And we're going to be having conversations on the Plus, inviting community leaders to come in and talk about this issue. And so it is going to be on every platform that we have focusing attention to this issue.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we've got many of them lined up for MorningLine during this month, as well as I think the I-team. It wasn't just you. It's also Jennifer Krause and Ben Hall, and of course the whole team working on this. We'll have Jennifer on next week.
And photojournalist Brian Staples and Bob Stinnett. And our executive producer Kevin Wisniewski.
Don't leave Kevin out. I'll hear about it later. But the bottom line on this, Phil, you guys, we just have a minute left, decided to focus on this, and it's high time. There've been stories done in small microcosms, hear this and what. This is one of the very first comprehensive looks I can think of. And my hope from this is that when it's done and I see the end, it leads to at least some action. Because it's getting worse. It's getting worse out there, and that's going to be part of the piece of the puzzle. So, as always, people can call you with tips and things like this as well, or comments on this.
Send us tips. I mean, if the system has failed you or your family, our email address is investigate@newschannel5.com, investigate@newschannel5.com, or call 615-244-NEWS.
Phil, thanks. Great job, and I look forward to watching this all month. And tune in, starting off right off the bat tonight at 10 o'clock. And then I'll tell you more about those OTT devices and some of the longer form pieces they've done. Thanks again, Phil.
All right, thanks.
Be back with a programming note right after this. All right, that is a wrap, everyone. Thank you so much for following us on the program today, not only on the Plus, but on Facebook at newschannel5.com. Lots of great comments and the like. Look, I want to remind you that we will have guests on following Broken throughout the month of November. Tune in tonight at 10 o'clock for Phil's piece. And then keep in mind that you can get the longer form stories, and there's a lot of them in that video they have of these chases and everything else. Very compelling on just about all of your OTT devices. And, just go to the News Channel 5 app, and you can see those stories there. Some of the stories, that's the only place you'll be able to see them. But again, Jennifer Krause will be on with us next week, and we have other guests addressing this important issue, which affects us all throughout the month of November. Now, I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Shifting gears a bit, Josh Horn will be with us as annual monthly visit with regard to Social Security. Any help you need, SSI, disability, and the like, join us then. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.